This is the Simpit. I'm your host, Shaun Cole, and welcome to today's edition of the Pit Stop, where we, the pit crew, we are all here just to kick back and talk sim racing. I hope everybody had a good weekend. Happy Passover, happy Easter, happy good weekend to everybody out there, and I hope you had fun, got to do some racing. Not a lot of racing on TV, though, with it being a holiday weekend, so to speak. And therefore, I think it left a lot of people wondering what to do in the world of sim racing without that motivation of where NASCAR or Formula One or IndyCar were running at. Left you have to come up with your own combinations, but I'm sure you all had a chance to do that. I drove a little bit of the Nordschleife this weekend. I also had family come in, got to hang out with my mom. My mom doesn't live in the same city as me anymore, and I don't get to see her that often, so it's really nice getting to see mom. And anyway, had a great weekend, but happy Monday. We are here to kick things off. A little bit slow on this Monday morning following a weekend, but that's okay. I have plenty going on here at the Sim Pit, lots to talk to you guys about, and I just want to go back to some of the conversation that was going on before the show. I wish almost sometimes it's like I want to be able to hit a button and have that chat get chronicled or attached to the video, but we were talking about different car types. You see our thumbnail of the day. It's a 914 that is in Forza, and it was in, we'll get to the Forza story, well, their weekly, just our weekly update on what's going on there, but 914 was one of my favorite cars, Porsche 914, I call it a flat bug. The body was made by Carmen. I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it actually cost Porsche more money to manufacture a 914 than it cost to manufacture a 911 of the same year, that due to having to pay Carmen for the chassis or the bodies, the unibody. Anyway, wonderful car. Maybe, in my opinion, the 914 is a car that has gotten not quite the respect deserved for what a machine it really is. But it made me think a couple of different things. Number one, what are some of those cars? I mean, are there cars out there? Not, I don't want to hear Ferrari or Lamborghini or Bentley or Bugatti on this list. Are there cars that are like realistic price that your common guy? I mean, that was the thing about a 914. It was not an expensive car on the used market, especially. And they could be scooped up for very cheap. I think I paid $1,200 for mine when I had it back in the day. That would have been back in like 98 or so, 2000, somewhere in that range. And it was a piece of junk, but it was a very fun car. But anyway, what are some of your favorite cars that like, I always wanted to start a used car dealership called Iconic Motors, and we were going to specialize in cars that like car people liked, like maybe a Triumph Spitfire, or someone mentioned earlier an MR2 or a Honda S2000, maybe on the high end, because those are still very pricey. But what are those cars that if you're a wheelman, Subaru BRZ, Dave, I saw one of those for a very reasonable price in the used market recently, and, they come down. I mean, they're quite expensive for what they were when they came out, but on the used market, I think that's going to prove to be a great car that you can scoop up cheap for an incredible car that's easy to even add to. Hey, David, glad you made it here today. But yeah, I am a big fan of cars that ugly ducklings, we could call them, if we're talking about the 914. The Fiat 126. I don't know the 126. Do I have to look that up real quick? I don't know if I'm capable of such a thing. The other thing, I just really quickly, what are your guys' thoughts on some of the inherent behaviors? My dad owned an 87 Fiero GT. The GT model of the Fiero was a badass machine, not to be mistaken with a standard Fiero at all. Mazda Miata, Dave, I want a Miata so bad, but my friends make fun of me for even bringing it up in conversation, and I'm not sure that I could get away with it. The Fiat 126, are you serious on this one? Okay, we're gonna bring the thumbnail down here. This is the Fiat 126. This is the car. Hey, Andreas, my head? Dodge Brothers, 1929 Dodge Brothers. Wow. MR2 is the one for me. Of all the cars in the world that I really, really would like, I think it's an MR2. Because, see, that's the thing. I could get an MR2 and my friends would dig it. And meanwhile, if I get a Miata, I'll be made fun of. Nissan 300ZX Turbo. Dave Blair, good pick there. My mom owned a Nissan 300Z. The first year, the wide body, I call it 300, not the little, like a 240 style. It was not a turbo. It was a V6. And when I drove that car, every time I drove it, she had a manual even, I thought, this car deserves a lot more power, hence the turbo version or the Supra version. Dawson 510, Brian Ostrike says, absolutely, I agree. Used Boxsters are getting cheap. Yes, they are, Brad. They're sort of like the modern era. You can get a great deal on a Vet. A Vet has always been one of the best deals for like the used car market. Integra Type R, Arthur comes in with, wow, you know, the Integra Type R, no offense, I think it's one of the most overrated cars. Like the Honda people went crazy for the Integra Type R. And it's like, yes, but was it all that? I had it in the era of the Type R, I had an Eclipse Turbo, 1990 Eclipse Turbo, Mitsubishi, one of my all-time favorite cars. And man, it ate Type R's for lunch. No, 84 non-turbo Z, yes, any Z is a great Z, I do believe. All right, so anyway, a little distracted there. The other thing I just kind of want to think, somebody asked about snap oversteer in the 914, and my memory didn't serve it being snappy. Yes, you could drive it right into oversteer. It made me think of some of the inherent differences in handling, and I know some of you guys are seasoned racers, some of you guys are a little more rookie, but you know, when you drive a mid-engine car, typically I think they, if anything, they suffer from the minute you get out of control, you might have gone too far. That's like when I think about mid-engine cars, they might be the best handling cars, but the margin for error before they're unsavable happens much quicker than a front-wheel drive car, which will always, not always, typically will have understeer, push, tight, not want to turn in for the corner. If you overdrive in a front wheel drive, you turn and the car will just kind of ignore you until it slows it down to get enough grip. Rear wheel drives tend to suffer from oversteer, that rear end throttle steer ability. So anyway, but no, my 914 was really well balanced and so underpowered that it just was not. It was a beautiful car. It was just an amazing car. John Hill getting rid of his Vet. John Hill's gone high tech. Anybody who knows John Hill knows what I'm talking about there. A Civic. Golf GTI. There you go. Yes. All right. On with the show. I just thought that was kind of a fun distraction, but I know John Hill has had a lot of unique cars. He had an MR2. He had a Fiat X19. There's another mid-engine mini car. A lot of cool cars out there. Iconic motors. So, in the world of iRacing, in the VRS, you know, talk about, if you put your name on a series in sim racing, are you, like, obligated to defend it? Like, when I host a Simpit race, am I just a chump when I can't win the Simpit race? VRS are the sponsors of one of the big events, the GTE World Championships. And congratulations to them, because they actually went 1-2 in their own event. Mitchell De Jong, look at that. Mitchell in second place. Ricardo Costa, Ledo. These are team events, I do believe. And they had victory for the 81 car with J.K. Rogers. Put in a big lap to start from the pole. The 8 made it up to P2 after qualifying P10. So they went from 10th to second place. Good job. 18 was hindered, blah, blah. Anyway, VRS just dominating in that particular event. We saw some pictures. There are a few more pictures, and I just thought they were worth seeing. And this is from the first SRO competition that went on in Assetto Corsa Competizione. I thought it was a great-looking venue. I was just always disappointed that they didn't have enough room for an audience. Brendan, you are one of our stories. Oh my gosh, Brendan, you had quite a weekend. You had quite a weekend, buddy. We're going to talk about you. Anyway, some cool pictures of those Sparco rigs. Big giant Thrustmaster TGT. Brendan, you're not allowed. Who's this? If you're a sim racing fan, if you know sim racing aliens, you should know who this is just by looking at him. Who's that? 3, 2, 1. That's David Greco. David Greco, alien extraordinaire. Anyway, there is the event and a few of the people actually looking over the venue and things like that. I just like these pictures. I think they're sim racing news as far as I'm concerned. Let's see. Formula One, they are having their second of 3 F1 Esport qualifying events. It's a go. You have to hunt down the win at Baku to be the one with the chance. So if you want to compete against Brendan and the other F1 champs that are out there, you are running out of your opportunities to earn your way into that series. I'm assuming some of the status quo will remain, but a handful of spots apparently are being given out through online qualifying events. So if you want to, I applaud you guys, and I think you're all great drivers. It's just a matter of focusing your talent and saying, I want to be one of these guys. You know, it's a professional sport now. That's why I go on and on about F1 Esport, all the esport across the board. Sim racing is now a professional sport. Esport, forget esport. I don't care about them. Sim racing, esport, is now a professional sport. It's not a huge one. I mean, there's only a handful of small leagues with only a handful of opportunities, but it is professional. There are guys making a living sim racing, and you could too. All right, there's our car. There it is. It's the Forza Weekend review for 1919. You know, I don't have a whole lot to talk about when I'm just talking about their weekly versus... I mean, when they have a cool update, I want to talk about it. When they have a big esport event, I want to talk about it for sure. But as far as just their weekly, but it was the 914 that got me. I just had to. Never been a fan of running in the series you run. I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, like right now we're running a truck series. That's not for everyone. It's oval. We will be doing another road series following that one. So as soon as that season finishes up, we're going to roll into a road mini season. Whoa. That is world record news. Brendan, are you joking? Are you pulling our leg? Is this a late April Fool's? That's got to be a late April Fool. 2-time champion isn't returning for a third? We're going to have to get you on the show. You available Friday morning? Anyway, Drift King, there's some really cool Gymkhana. I like to call it Gymkhana at this point. Vaughn Gittin Jr. Did I say his name right? I think I said Vaughn Gittin Jr. right, but yeah, exactly, Tim. Maybe it's that. Some cool videos of that kind of stuff going on. They got their festival playlist, autumn season, their Forza Street they're talking about. That was the takeover of Miami Street, remember? And now a Forza. I did see a review of that title that said it's beautiful and too simple. That's what I heard. This is an hour and 28 minute. Oh, there you go. There's Vaughn Gittin. I've met him at a couple of different parties. I think he's from Southern California, hangs out here a lot. But I've met him at a few different CXE parties, seen a few of his different rides. That is definitely not one of my favorite of his cars, but there you go. Cool stuff. Podium wheels. So yes, I do, Brad. Brad, send me an email privately, Shaun, SHAUN, at thesimpit.com, and I will send you a 3-month iRacing code. New memberships only. Anybody out there wants to try out iRacing and you don't have an account, it only works for a new account, free 3-month, which is the best deal I can find for trying it out. There are probably better deals for long term, but that'll get you going at least. So email me privately. I did get a request or two over the weekend. I'll take care of those right after the show. What else? Oh, so podiums. So, we talked about their, Sim Racing Girl did that cool video taking you through their ecosystem. This goes back to April 13th. This is building up to what is probably certainly the biggest news of the month, maybe the biggest news of the first quarter of 2019, and that being the delivery of the Fanatic Podium wheelbases. I do have one on order. I am one of the early orderers and should be receiving one. But first they had the compatibility video. Then they had their unboxing video that made me very jealous. And now, following that, we do have an announcement that all of the pre-orders of the first batch will leave their warehouse before April 30th. Now, I understood originally that I was going to get mine by April 30th, not get notification of delivery by April 30th. But that is the most hardline date that I've seen for when those will be shipping out to people. The Mustang and Project Cars 2 is undrivable in a straight line, just too much horsepower. It's a phone game talking about Forza Street, Miami Street. What else? What else to talk about? Here, this, I saw this and I wanted to pull it up. Someone sent it in. I didn't get a chance to read it. This is at motorsport.com. So real life journalism covering esport now. But Renault adds former F1 junior to esport roster. So at this point, Dutch racer Jarno Opmeer originally joined the Renault Sport Academy in 2017 on the heels of finishing runner-up to compatriot Richard Verschoor. That sounds like some Dutch names, yes? In the SMP Formula 4 Series. Anyway, he is now joining the ranks, running in the F1 2019 season that is getting underway and qualifying. We were talking about and questioning whether Brendan will be a defending two-time champion, or has he gone real life, or is there another esport that has suckered him in, or, as I was saying, it's a profession, or have you retired? Or have you earned enough money that you've just retired on your 2 wins? Laser, I was trying to be fancy. Laser asked, why is the little corner right here cut out? I was trying to be artistic, and just this morning, funny enough, you say that today. It looks stupid. I'm going to change that. We're going to do a new layout for the pit stop starting Wednesday. I promise. There, you can take that to the bank. Anyway, congratulations to him and part of the silly season. I guess we can now call it silly season when talking about F1 esport, and you've got that time between seasons where there will be mix-ups and changes, and I don't even know where the lines are drawn on where the shenanigans can begin and end when it comes to that. Brendan's going to GT Sport exclusive. Is that so? I'm not sure. We're gonna have to check in with Brendan. Oh, speak of the devil. So, Brendan, correct me if I'm wrong. I did scan through this article. It sounds like in your debut weekend in the FF 1600 season, series, you or Formula Ford, as a lot of people will call it that as well. But officially, it's the National Formula Ford 1600 Championship. And you drove with Kevin Mills Racing this weekend, driving the Spectrum SCO 11C, and the team captured second place in the series last year, meaning you're running with a top team as well. Anyway, it sounds like you had a really good qualifying effort. I believe you qualified 4th or 5th, if I'm not mistaken, and then you finished well in the first of 3 races, and I believe that you finished 4th ahead of your teammates in the first race. And then, if I'm not mistaken, in the second race, there was some form of an incident that put you into the barrier and ended the second race, and then you had some kind of a mechanical that led to a DNF in the third race. And but overall, you did very well. And then on top of that, we understand that you're going to be racing May 11th at Oulton Park. So the drama, the fun is what it really is, continues. So congratulations to you on getting out there. What was it like? How has F1 Esport prepared you for a real-life racing grid? I know you got 3 days of testing. Was that adequate amount of time? And how did you do in testing compared to during the race? A car problem caused a spin into turn 1. Too bad. But it sounded like the team, from what I read, it sounded like the team was very impressed with what you've done in the car. So a little bit of bad luck in your debut. But May 11th, we'll see how you do in your second run there. So let us know. Again, love to get you on the show and talk about where you are and what's going on in your world and all the fun you're having. Same problem came up in race 3 to cause another DNF. Most unfortunate. Most unfortunate. That doesn't help. I missed the question about the dirt. Rick, I've heard great things. I've driven the dirt. Dirt's a lot of fun. We talked to Billy Strange about the dirt aspects of iRacing, and it sounds like a lot of it are really, really good. And like sim racing, at the same time, there are a handful of flaws and things to overcome in getting it to the point that you'd say it's super duper realistic. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, Dave Blair. Where's the fast repair when you need one? Anyway, Supercar partners with Gfinity AU Australia for the E-Series Championship. So we are now going to officially have a Supercar sanctioned esports specific to Australia, which makes sense because we are talking, I mean, you're talking Supercar. You know, you talk NASCAR, you're talking United States. You're talking Supercar, you're talking Australia. Anyway, but we've talked about this, but this is going to be another part of another competition. Like I said, we are talking about we're talking about sim racing being professional, pro. Excuse me. Believe it or not, I am still recovering from this ridiculous cold/flu. You know, I will say I am blessed and I do not get sick very often. And I will also say that typically when I get sick, I kick that out of my system very, very quickly. This has been one of the most lingering flu colds that I have ever had. And it wasn't the worst I've ever had as far as at its bottom. It just won't go away. All right. Yeah, Brandon, wouldn't that have been great? Would have been so funny if you had said that on the mic. Anyway, so just another form of esport going on. Speaking of esport, check this out. So, Chinese internet Goliath Tencent aims to top the U.S. with 13 billion esport league, $13 billion esport league with killer games and shows. So China is now all in and looking to take over the entire esports scene, throwing in, I mean, 13 billion is a pretty significant investment, that is for sure. We have gone pro. No, I'm not sure if that pays us. I'm not sure if they're talking sim racing specifically. I don't think so. Yeah, Brendan, I'm sure, give him a working car and a couple more laps, and they'll be giving him some trophies, that's for sure. You're watching in 144p with sketchy signal on a train. Hopefully it holds up. I'm not sure if that's... well, it's just a small picture, so... hopefully it looks good in that setting. All right, what else? Yeah, in the public, yeah, I spent a whole week in public. I need to stay in my house. 10 cent? 10 cent, like 50 cent. Well played, Tim. We talked about the Gran Turismo Sport secret update. Remember we talked about it in the form of Porsche, because Porsche has another eSport, GT Sport eSport event with Porsche branding in it, and they announced that date, I believe it was the 28th, if I'm not mistaken. So we have another one of those cool images of various different cars. That looks like an Audi TT. That looks like a Ford Focus or something like it. This looks like a Fiat. This looks like a... I don't know. Fiat X19? Is that two Fiats? This is a whole Fiat pack? I don't know. Anyway, I don't see a Porsche there, funny enough. Anyway. Oh, wow. There we are. So how wrong was Shaun? That was a Honda. That was an Audi TT. AE86 Toyota Corolla. Is that a... I'm not sure what this one is. And Rothman, the 962 Porsche. So there's your big Porsche that we were expecting in it. Chris Stoney, that was from Forza. That was an image from Forza. There you go. So anyway, that's the latest, greatest in part of the update coming for GT Sport. I thought it was an X19 crit. I totally did. Totally did. Nope, it was just an AE86. They fooled us. I love this picture of the... And these guys could be wrong. Who knows? I don't know who posted that. It's a Renault 8. That's what that one is. A Honda Fit. Oh, yes. I gotta get me a Honda Fit in game. I mean, it's not a sim if it doesn't have a Honda Fit. Audi TT. Audi TT is one of those cars you could probably scoop up for a reasonable price, but would your friends laugh at you? Wouldn't they? Porsche 962, Renault 8, and an AE86 Truno. Corolla here in the United States. Virtua Racing debuting on Nintendo Switch in Japan this month. The reason I bring up Virtua Racing, normally I wouldn't necessarily talk about something so arcadey. Virtua Racing was a game that we played back in the day, and I remember being so good. Now, this is before multiplayer, I was so good at Virtua Racing in split screen or against my friends hot lapping in the house that I actually learned to play Virtua Racing with my toes. And I could still beat everybody at that game. Honda Fit, this pinnacle of sim racing. That's it. We're going to have a special event. We're going to do a fit fun run. Audi TT is small, so you would look taller driving it, Shaun. Very true, Spatial. That would help me. That would help a lot. Funny enough, the Datsun 240, which is a small car, is a really good car for tall people. If you're tall and you've had a hard time fitting into smaller, older sports cars, I will testify that I look tiny inside of my 240. I look like I'm down low on the ground because I am. Anyway, what else? Speaking of other... I like the paint schemes here. So we think about the future of racing hovercrafts. I remember what was the first new Star Wars where they had the races with I can't remember anything. But I will say if they ever figured out how to do hovercraft racing, I would watch it in a heartbeat. I'd watch it quicker than I'd watch Formula E, and I do like Formula E, and I don't even have anything against it. But anyway, Formula Fusion, but anti-grav racing. But the paint schemes kind of got me here because I was like, oh, that almost looks like a Formula 1 grid. It also looks like a super boat. What do they call those giant boats that they race? Pod racers, that's it. Pod racers, thank you guys. Thank you very much. You pretend that movie never existed. Aww. Does that mean everything other than the original 3, Brad? Is that the bottom line? Phantom Menace. Thank you, Stuart. I was going to say that, but I wasn't sure if that was the first one. Anyway, Pacer is overhauling anti-grav racing, so we could see a next-gen. F-Zero was a game that I played back in the day that we do bring up from time to time. Come on. This would be fun. I mean, if you're playing this with a controller... against your friends, in the living room on a big screen. That could be totally fun. Oh, yeah, look at that. Defy gravity. I'm not going to rule it out. Not going to rule it out at all. So, what else? A few more things to talk about. It wasn't a super busy day in the world of sim racing. But, let's see. There is a guide. So, simracer.es. If you're looking, one of the reasons I'm a fan of iRacing, and, this really... I'm going to say this. One of the reasons I'm a fan of iRacing is because of the multiplayer aspect and how simple it is to just online race against people, the masses, and do it in so many different ways. Virtually every other sim makes it very difficult. If you're talking PC sims, it's still really based on somebody's connection for the most part. You have to set up a server in many cases, firewalls, all these various hoops that you have to jump through to accomplish the goal. And then still it comes down to bandwidth. When you're talking about the console type games, we talk about and joke about hoppers. you know, you can only be so good on a hopper. You can only be so good on just some random person's connection that you don't even know who. Anyway, but here's a guide to setting up your own rFactor 2 server, putting everything in motion. That's, you know, if there's one thing that I could do for the Simpit in the coming year, I think it would be somehow, some way, either buying, renting, or building and hosting a server so that we can do our own events in rFactor 2, Assetto Corsa, Race Room, Project Cars, the works. So anyway, maybe that's something that we'll have to look to do to finish off 2019 so we can do more events in-house with the pit crew and things. I think Dave has a Pimax 5K. I'm dying to try this thing out. I mean, I think it's still a little ways away from where we're getting these optimized and getting the hardware that can push them, the software that's optimized for them. But anyway, there are final developments in this 5K plus Pimax version, full write-up, and this is at SimRace blog if you want to hear more about that headset, which, you know, you could call this one of the next gens that's already here today. That's for sure. Hey, Mitchie Hoyer, how you doing? How you doing, buddy? Edgar has issues. Yeah, see, it's always so difficult. So anyway, if you are looking to, you'll find that at simracer.es, a guide on setting up. I'll have to read this and see what I can do about doing it. I'd like to host some race room events and other things. What else? Looking for some events. A little slow this week, but tonight you've got the UK and IRL Monday Night Skippies. Round 6 at Twin Motegi. These are all broadcasts coming up on Race Spot. You've got the Outlaws. So World of Outlaws Sprint Car. Someone asked about the dirt. You want to see the best? We've watched the racing, and it's been awesome. The racing has been awesome, and it looks just like when you watch it on TV, except for it's our sim racing heroes. But the World of Outlaws Sprint Car World Championship, money on the line, so to speak. Round 5 at Volusia will be tomorrow night. Then we've got the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. See if anybody can beat what Michael Connie. He's won 2 this year, I think. 2, if I'm not mistaken. Round 6 at Talladega. And a few other events. We've got the iRacing F3 Championship, Porsche Esport later in the week, and things like that. A little out of order here. A little review here at Xbox Hub, talking about the game that I've still been wanting to get back to. Still had a hard time really truly loving or enjoying karting titles. And I think it's more of a byproduct, not so much of the quality of what they're putting together as much as how much harder it is to get the dynamic of karting in a sim compared to a car. They're just sensations that you get in a full-body car that you can kind of work with. In karting, it's so violent and so sticky and so stiff. Ryan Lusa has won 2. Thank you. VR was a fad. Thank you, Tim. Wouldn't that be great, Heiko, if we had our own Simpit server? I think it's time. We're going to have to work on that. But anyway, if you want to hear more about the early access, there was a big update to KartCraft very recently, so I should try to get in and try that out at least. A couple of rigs just for some motivation. Look at it, another one of those PC, I forgot, nobody gave me the name when last time we talked about it. Mayhem Monday. Mayhem Monday. Anyway, one of those PVC rigs. He's got a fan on there. And can I make out? It looks like a D. That's the Logitech wheel. And is that Race Room or Assetto Corsa? Anyway, good looking PVC rig. Gotta love the PVC rig. Speaking of do-it-yourself versions, there's his take on the Ricmotech RS1. So, looks very similar to the plan and build. You know, you get the giant plans from Ricmotech. And I say giant because they're full size, remember? But anyway, here's his take on an RS1 DIY wood rig. Don't even want to call that a deathmobile. When you put that kind of effort and design into it, that's not a deathmobile anymore. That's what defines it more as Ricmotech RS1 copy than a deathmobile copy for sure. Good job by him. Just shows you, doesn't take a lot. A little bit of wood, few screws, little ingenuity and design, a car seat from anything, and boom, you've got a pro rig. I would have painted that one. I think that one's worthy of a coat of paint, to be honest with you. Let's see now. Look at this thing. Look at this rig. This is posted by Dennis Johnson. I'm sure that's not Dennis Johnson of the NBA fame, 463. But look, there is so much going on here. I can't even figure out what's going on here. He runs in VR, as you can tell, because I don't see a monitor set up. There's a big monitor on the wall, but I see a VR headset on the other wall. Equipment everywhere. It looks like massive audio equipment. I see a giant butt kicker off to the left. This is a labor of love right there. Caster wheels, roll that sucker around, holds the computer on there. That right there is a rig of rigs. Gotta love it. And then finally, okay, now let's talk about fun stuff. Gene Miller, our very own patron, pit crew teammate, Gene Miller, dropping the gauntlet. Le Mans Le Sarthe. Go get him. Go get him. There it is. Mad Dog Pagan is the name he goes by on Project Cars. Tim, well, you got anything for him? Le Mans Le Sarthe. He ran a 351.569. Good enough for third place overall. Anyone going to go get him? The other thing I want to know, another gauntlet being thrown. Gene Miller confessed to being 70 years old, and he and I have been wondering, who is the oldest patron member? Who's the oldest sim racer you know? Who's the oldest part of our crew, part of our audience, part of the pit crew? And even more than that, who's the oldest sim racer you know? I'd love to talk to the oldest sim racer we can find and maybe get them on the show and talk about sim racing with them, see if they have a different perspective. Now let's talk about our in-house entertainment. Is that Forza? Is that Forza? I thought this was, oh, yes, with the auto-tune. Yes. Dun, 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 dun. I should check my email. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much, Billy Strange. That would be too funny if I send you guys out to the wrong sim. I should put my disclaimer up here, even though I didn't butcher a name. I just butchered my information. So, good pickup there. Thank you very much. Go get him. Go get him on Forza. What else do we have for fun? Tonight, Devin Booth, I think this starts off at about 7 o'clock. Devin Booth with that Simpit Mazda series. Good fun. They're doing Nordschleife. So tonight's going to be a fit of survival. He'll be streaming the race. You can get out there and race with those guys. Beyond that, I have a really busy week. Tomorrow night, I'm going to have a practice race for Lionheart. Wednesday night, I've got the Lionheart race. I'll probably stream both of those. Thursday night, we have the practice race for the patron, monthly patron race. We'll be giving away a t-shirt and a coffee mug or mouse pad to a lucky patron member. We'll be doing that. Nobody knows the combination. I will let everybody know Thursday for the practice race. Even if they can't make the race, they'll know the combination so people can at least get a little acquainted with the combination before our race on Saturday morning. And then Friday night, we're going to have our final practice race for the Simpit Truck Series on iRacing, which starts on May 10th. May 10th is going to be the first race of the season. So Friday night, we'll have a practice race, and that will be at 6 p.m. I'll be streaming it, and it's open to anybody. You just got to be a member of that league on iRacing. And then beyond that, is there anything else? I think that's everything I've got going on. I'm working on that Thrustmaster headphone review. I wasn't really planning on reviewing them, but a lot of people have asked me about those Thrustmaster Ferrari headphones, the ones that look like the ones the guys really wear up on the box. $7.15 for Devin's Mazda Monday. Thank you, Devin. That review is in the works. We're going to get that cranked out and a few other things behind the scenes that I'm testing and playing with, doing some motion and VR, playing around with that combination to kind of put the best of all of my instruments for my symphony together for the ultimate sim, perhaps. We'll have to check that out and see. That's in the works as well. So lots going on here. Thank you for being here. Be sure to thumbs up. Be sure to tell a friend. Be sure to subscribe so that we can continue to grow. And be sure to tune in on Wednesday for the next edition of the Pit Stop. But that's going to do it for this one. This is the Simpit. I'm Shaun Cole, and I'll see you on the track.